From the moment I was old enough to understand what the word family meant, my brother Ethan was the one person who made me feel safe in a world that often felt too big and too cruel. He was 3 years older than me, and growing up in our small town in Ohio, he wore that older brother role like a badge of honor. To everyone else, he was just another kid at school, but to me, he was my shield. Our parents were complicated. Dad worked long hours at the factory, always tired, always carrying the weight of bills and responsibilities on his shoulders. Mom was loving but stretched thin between her job at the diner, taking care of the house, and trying to keep us all together. She rarely had time to just sit down and breathe. That left Ethan as the one who filled in the cracks. He wasn't just my brother. He was my best friend, my confidant, and the one who promised me, over and over again, "I'll always protect you, no matter what." I can still picture the way he said it, like it was a vow he carved into the air every time the world tried to hurt me. When the kids at school laughed at me because my shoes were old and scuffed, Ethan would stand up for me. When I cried because Mom and Dad were fighting again in the kitchen, Ethan would slip into my room, sit at the edge of my bed, and whisper, "You've got me." That's all that matters. And for years, I believed him. We weren't the kind of family with perfect Christmas cards or family vacations. Money was tight, and sometimes so was love. But Ethan always made me feel like we could survive anything, as long as we stuck together. He was smart, funny in a sarcastic way that made me laugh until my stomach hurt, and he had this quiet strength that made me think nothing could ever break him. But the thing about promises is, sometimes the people who make them are the very ones who end up breaking them in ways you could never prepare for. It started with small things I brushed off at first. Ethan became distant when he hit his junior year of high school. He wasn't around as much, always saying he had stuff to do. He didn't tell me everything anymore, and when I asked, he'd just ruffle my hair and say, "Don't worry, kid. You wouldn't get it anyway." I hated that phrase. You wouldn't get it. Because for so long, Ethan had treated me like an equal, like someone who mattered. Now, he seemed to be building walls between us, brick by brick. But I held onto the memories of when he protected me. Like the time Dad lost his temper and slammed his fist against the table, yelling about the bills piling up. I was only 10, scared out of my mind, but Ethan grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing it so tightly that it felt like he was transferring his courage straight into me. Later that night, when I cried in my room, he sat with me and said softly, "I'll never let anything bad happen to you." So even when he started pulling away, I convinced myself it was just part of growing up. High school friends, sports, girls, of course he'd have less time for me. That's normal, right? I told myself he was still my brother, still my protector. Deep down, I believed that no matter what changed, his promise never would. But everything shifted the summer before he graduated. That was when I noticed his room changing. His walls, once covered in posters of bands and movie characters we both loved, became bare. His drawers seemed emptier, like he was packing things away little by little. He locked his door sometimes, which he never used to do. And when I asked about it, he just shrugged and said he wanted his privacy. One night, I couldn't sleep. I got up to get a glass of water, and as I passed Ethan's room, I heard him on the phone. His voice was low, urgent. I couldn't make out all the words, but I caught fragments. "I can't keep this secret forever. She doesn't know. If they find out." My stomach twisted. Who was he talking about? What secret? And more importantly, why was he keeping it from me? That was the first time I realized something was very, very wrong. But Ethan didn't tell me. He acted normal the next day, joking around at breakfast, punching my shoulder like he always did. And I let it go because I was scared. Scared that if I asked, he'd shut me out even more. Scared that whatever he was hiding might shatter the image I'd built of him in my heart, the protector, the brother who would never let me down. I didn't know it then, but the truth was waiting for me, hidden in a place I never thought to look. A truth so heavy, so devastating, that when I finally uncovered it, it didn't just break Ethan's promise, it broke our entire family. And it all started with a journal. His journal. The one I would find months later, shoved under his bed, filled with words that would change everything I thought I knew about my brother, my parents, and the family I thought we were. The night I found the journal wasn't planned. I wasn't snooping, at least not at first. Ethan had already moved out by then, just a few weeks after graduation. He told everyone he was heading to stay with a friend while figuring out what he wanted to do next. But even then, there was something in his eyes, something heavy and unspoken, that told me there was more to the story. Our parents acted like it was normal. Dad was proud, calling it independence. Mom just nodded, though I noticed her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. And me? I was torn between missing my brother and wondering why it felt like he had been preparing for this departure long before anyone else realized. I was 14, old enough to know when something wasn't right, but still young enough to hope I was imagining it. One quiet Sunday afternoon, while Mom worked a double shift and Dad was outside fixing the car, I wandered into Ethan's old room. It was strange walking in there without him. His scent still lingered, a mix of laundry detergent, cologne, and the faint trace of the gum he was always chewing. But the space looked empty, stripped of the life it once held. The shelves that had once been cluttered with trophies, video games, and knickknacks were bare. The closet door hung slightly open, revealing only a couple of old hoodies left behind. I don't know what made me do it, but I sat on his bed and leaned down to peek underneath. Maybe I was hoping to find some piece of him he'd forgotten, a note, a game, something that still belonged to us. That's when I saw it. A battered, leather-bound notebook shoved against the wall. Its edges were frayed, pages sticking out unevenly like it had been opened and closed too many times. My heartbeat quickened as I reached for it. For a moment, I froze. Should I really look inside? Ethan had always trusted me with everything. Until he didn't. What if this was one of those things he didn't want me to see? But curiosity, mixed with the ache of missing him, won. I pulled the journal out, sat cross-legged on the floor, and opened it. The first page hit me like a punch to the chest. If anyone ever finds this, I'm sorry. I couldn't say it out loud, not even to her. Especially not to her. Her. Was that me? My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. His handwriting was messy, rushed, like he had been pouring thoughts onto paper faster than he could keep up with them. The words were raw, desperate. And as I read, I realized this wasn't just a diary, it was a confession. Ethan had been living a double life, one none of us had any idea about. He wrote about sneaking out at night, about deals he'd been forced into, about people he described only in vague, shadowy terms, people who owned him now. He wrote about money he owed, mistakes he'd made that spiraled into something far bigger. He talked about the constant fear of being found out, of dragging our family into something dangerous. But what made my stomach drop, what made my hands shake so badly I almost dropped the book, was when he wrote about me. I promised her I'd protect her. But how do you protect someone from yourself? If she ever knew what I've done, she'd never look at me the same. I'm already a monster. I can't let her see it too. I slammed the journal shut, my breath caught in my throat. My brother, the one who swore he'd always keep me safe, was hiding secrets so dark he thought they'd destroy me. I wanted to stop reading, but I couldn't. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. You don't want to see it, but you can't look away. I kept going, page after page. He wrote about fights with Dad, not the small arguments we all saw, but big ones I never knew happened. Late night shouting matches when he'd come home past curfew, smelling like smoke and sweat. Dad accusing him of being reckless, Ethan screaming back that he didn't have a choice. He wrote about Mom too, how she looked at him differently, how she seemed to suspect more than she let on. How she once found bruises on his ribs and he lied, saying it was from football practice. And then there were the entries that made my blood run cold. They said if I don't pay them back, they'll come after her. I can't let that happen. I'd rather they take me. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Every lie feels heavier, but telling the truth would ruin everything. If she ever reads this, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I dropped the journal onto the floor, my whole body trembling. My brother wasn't the unshakable protector I thought he was. He wasn't the perfect shield I clung to all my life. He was scared, trapped, and hiding something that had the power to destroy us all. And worse, whatever danger he was in, he had dragged me into it, even if he thought he was shielding me. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the journal, my mind spinning. I didn't know what to do. Should I tell mom and dad? Should I call Ethan and demand answers? Or should I keep it all inside, like he had? Part of me wanted to rip the pages out and throw them away, pretend I'd never seen them. But the words were burned into my mind, impossible to erase. That night, I hid the journal under my own bed. For days, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I went through school in a daze, carrying the weight of Ethan's secrets on my shoulders. Every time mom asked if I was okay, I wanted to scream the truth, but I stayed silent. Because what if she already knew? What if dad was part of it too? I didn't realize it then, but finding that journal was like striking a match in a room soaked with gasoline. The truth was about to set fire to everything we thought we knew about each other. And the flames would burn higher than I ever could have imagined. The journal haunted me. Every night, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, Ethan's words echoing in my head like whispers I couldn't shut out. They said if I don't pay them back, they'll come after her. If she ever knew what I've done, she'd never look at me the same. I was torn apart inside. A part of me wanted to march into mom and dad's room and throw the journal down in front of them, demanding answers. Another part wanted to pick up the phone, call Ethan, and scream at him for keeping something so terrifying from me. But mostly, I was scared. Scared that whatever I said or did would make it all worse. So I kept it to myself, until one night, I couldn't anymore. It was a Thursday evening, dinner time. Mom had made spaghetti, and the four of us sat around the table, the way we always did. Dad shoveled food into his mouth like he was in a hurry to finish and get back to whatever repair project he had waiting in the garage. Mom asked about school, her voice tired but soft. And me? I just sat there, staring at the empty chair where Ethan used to sit. The silence of that chair was louder than anything else in the room. Finally, I blurted it out. Do you guys ever wonder what Ethan's really doing? Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Dad looked up, his eyes narrowing. What kind of question is that? He asked, his voice sharp. I mean, I stammered. He left so suddenly. He barely calls. Don't you think it's weird? Mom forced a smile, setting her fork down. Sweetheart, your brother's just trying to figure out his life. That's what people his age do. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. But I saw it, the flicker in her eyes, the way she avoided looking directly at me. She knew something. She was hiding it. Dad slammed his glass down harder than necessary. Leave it alone, he said, his tone final. Ethan's fine. He's an adult now. We don't need to worry about every little thing he does. But this wasn't a little thing. I opened my mouth to argue, but Mom shot me a look, a silent plea to stop. So I did. I shoved my spaghetti around my plate, feeling the weight of secrets pressing down on all of us. The air in the room was suffocating, thick with unspoken truths. That night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the journal from under my bed and sat with it again, reading more of Ethan's words by the dim glow of my lamp. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could fix everything before anyone noticed. But it's too big now. They want more money than I can ever get. And if I don't figure something out soon, it won't just be me in danger. It'll be her. It'll be the whole family. I burst into tears. My brother was in trouble, deep trouble, and he was carrying it all alone. And the worst part? He thought he was protecting me by keeping me in the dark. But he wasn't. He was destroying me. The next day at school, I couldn't focus. My best friend, Jenna, noticed immediately. She cornered me at lunch, her brown eyes full of concern. What's going on with you? You've been spaced out for days, she said, poking at her sandwich. I hesitated. I'd never told anyone about the journal, not even her. But something inside me cracked. The burden was too heavy. It's Ethan, I whispered. He's not who I thought he was. Jenna leaned closer. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. He left something behind. A notebook. And in it, he wrote about people who want money from him. About being scared. About them coming after me. My voice broke on the last word. Jenna's face paled. That's serious. You need to tell your parents. I tried, I said, tears stinging my eyes. They shut me down. They don't want to hear it. She grabbed my hand. Then you have to confront him directly. Call him. Go see him. Whatever this is, you can't carry it alone. Her words lit a fire in me. She was right. If my parents wouldn't face the truth, I would. That night, I dialed Ethan's number. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. It rang 3 times before he picked up. Hello. His voice was low, weary. It's me, I said, my throat tight. There was a pause, then a sigh. Hey, kid. What's up? I wanted to scream at him, but the words came out soft, broken. Why didn't you tell me? Another pause. Tell you what? Don't play dumb, I snapped. I found it, Ethan. The journal. I know about the money. I know about the people. I know you're in trouble. The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, he said, you weren't supposed to see that. Then why leave it under your bed? Why write it down at all if you didn't want me to know? My voice cracked. You promised me, Ethan. You promised you'd always protect me. And now you're dragging me into something I don't even understand. He cursed under his breath. Listen to me. You need to forget what you read. Don't talk about it to anyone. It's not safe. I can't just forget it, I cried. You're my brother. If you're in danger, I want to help. There was a long silence, then his voice, softer, almost broken. I don't deserve your help. Not after the things I've done. My heart clenched. What did you do? But he wouldn't answer. He just whispered, I'm sorry, and hung up. I stared at the phone, my hands trembling. For the first time in my life, I realized my brother wasn't my protector anymore. He was the one pulling us toward danger, one secret at a time. And soon, the cracks in our family would burst wide open. Because secrets like his, they don't stay buried forever. They rise, like ghosts, until there's nowhere left to hide. After that phone call, nothing felt the same. Every time I looked at my parents, I wondered how much they knew, how much they were pretending not to see. Every time the phone rang or a car pulled into our driveway late at night, my heart leapt into my throat, convinced it was them, the people Ethan had written about. I started noticing things I hadn't before. Mom flinched when the phone rang after dark. Dad spent more and more time in the garage, slamming tools around like he was trying to pound his anger into silence. They didn't talk about Ethan unless I brought him up, and when I did, they gave me the same canned answers. He's fine. He's figuring things out. Don't worry about him. But how could I not worry? The weight of the journal, the call, and Ethan's chilling words, I don't deserve your help, kept me up at night. I started carrying the journal everywhere, hidden in my backpack, like proof that I wasn't crazy. That my brother wasn't just drifting away, he was sinking and dragging us with him. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was a Saturday night. Mom was folding laundry in the living room while Dad watched a football game on the couch, beer in hand. I sat at the kitchen table, pretending to do homework, but really staring at Ethan's handwriting through the thin fabric of my backpack. Something in me snapped. I couldn't hold it in any longer. I pulled the journal out, slammed it onto the table, and shouted, We need to talk about this. The room froze. Dad muted the TV. Mom's hands stilled over a towel. What is that? Dad asked, his voice sharp. It's Ethan's journal, I said, my voice shaking. I found it under his bed after he left. He's in trouble. He owes people money, dangerous people. He said they'll come after me if he doesn't pay. Mom went pale. Dad stood up so fast his beer tipped over, spilling across the carpet. Where did you get this? He barked, grabbing the journal off the table. I told you, I cried. He left it behind. I read it. He's been lying to all of us. He's not fine, Dad. He's not just figuring things out. He's drowning. Mom pressed her hands to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Dad flipped through the pages, his face turning redder with every line. Finally, he slammed the journal shut. You shouldn't have read this. I stared at him, stunned. What? That's all you have to say? He jabbed a finger at me. You don't understand what's in here. You're too young. I'm not too young, I screamed, my voice breaking. I'm the one he was worried about. Me. He wrote about protecting me, about how if he didn't pay them back they'd come after me. And you want me to just sit here and pretend everything's okay? Mom burst into sobs. Dad's jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. Finally, Mom whispered. He promised me he'd stop. I turned to her, my chest tightening. You knew? Her eyes filled with tears. Not everything. But I knew he was involved in something. He came to me months ago, begging for money. I gave him what I could, but it was never enough. He swore he'd get out before it got worse. Dad's face darkened. And you didn't tell me. What would you have done? Mom shot back, her voice trembling. Yell at him? Kick him out? He was already falling apart. I stared between them, the room spinning. My whole life, I'd thought Ethan was the only one keeping secrets. But now I saw the truth. Everyone was. Mom had known something. Dad had suspected more than he admitted. And me? I was stuck in the middle, the one person Ethan swore to protect, yet the one person who was now carrying the heaviest burden. Dad finally threw the journal onto the couch. We're not talking about this anymore. Yes, we are, I shouted, standing to my feet. We can't just ignore it. Ethan's out there, and he's in danger. If we don't do something, we'll lose him. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my father's eyes. Real fear. And it terrified me more than anything in that journal. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Mom whispered, What if it's already too late? Her words hung in the air like a curse. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, tears streaming down my face. I thought about all the times Ethan had shielded me from the world, all the times he whispered promises in the dark. And now here I was, holding the pieces of his broken life in my hands, powerless to fix any of it. The next morning, the phone rang. I was the one who answered. Hello? Is this the Miller residence? A rough voice asked. My heart stopped. Why, yes. There was a pause then. Tell Ethan time's up. If he doesn't have the money by Friday, we're coming for what's ours. The line went dead. I dropped the phone, my entire body shaking. They knew where we lived. They knew us. And now the clock was ticking. When I told my parents what had happened, Mom collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. Dad cursed, punching the wall so hard it left a dent. And me? I stood there in the middle of the chaos, my heart pounding, realizing the truth. Ethan hadn't just lied. He hadn't just broken his promise. He dragged us into a nightmare none of us could escape. The cracks in our family weren't just showing anymore. They were splitting wide open, and soon, everything we thought we knew about each other would be in ruins. Because when Friday came, nothing would ever be the same again. Friday arrived like a storm I couldn't outrun. Every tick of the clock that week had been louder than the one before, counting down to some inevitable ending. Mom barely slept, pacing the living room at night, whispering prayers I wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Dad spent hours making calls in the garage, his voice low and sharp, though I could tell he didn't know who he was calling or what he was even trying to fix. And me? I carried Ethan's journal everywhere, the weight of it pressing against my chest like a second heart. Every time I reread his words, I heard his voice in my head, broken, desperate. If she ever knew what I've done, she'd never look at me the same. By Friday afternoon, my nerves were stretched to the breaking point. Every knock on the door made me flinch. Every car that slowed in front of our house made my stomach twist. But when the truth finally came, it didn't arrive in the form of strangers pounding on our door. It arrived in the form of Ethan himself. He showed up just after sunset, standing on the porch like a ghost from another life. His hair was longer, his clothes wrinkled, his face pale and hollow. But it was his eyes that gutted me, the eyes of someone carrying more pain than a person should ever have to bear. "Ethan," Mom whispered, rushing to the door. He stepped inside slowly, like he wasn't sure he belonged there anymore. His gaze swept over us, Mom crying, Dad stiff with anger, me standing in the middle clutching his journal. "I guess you know," he said finally, his voice hoarse. The silence was suffocating. I held up the journal with shaking hands. "Why, Ethan? Why didn't you just tell us?" His jaw tightened. "Because I didn't want to drag you into it." Dad's voice was like thunder. "Too late for that. They called this house. They threatened your sister." Ethan winced. His eyes flickered to me. "I'm sorry. I thought I could handle it before it got that far." "Handle what?" I demanded, tears burning in my eyes. "Who are these people? What did you do?" He swallowed hard, then sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. For a long moment, the only sound was Mom's quiet sobs. Finally, Ethan lifted his head, and the words spilled out like poison he'd been holding too long. "It started small," he said. "A couple years ago, I got mixed up with some guys at school. They weren't just kids messing around, they were running things. Money, parties, drugs. At first, I thought it was harmless. Easy cash, a way to feel like I mattered. My heart sank. Drugs. I'd never even considered it. But it got out of control," he continued, his voice shaking. "I owed them money. More than I could ever pay back. I thought if I worked for them, I could clear it. But the debt just kept growing. No matter how much I gave, it was never enough." Dad's face turned red, fury radiating off him. "So you dragged us all into this mess? You let them threaten your sister?" Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted that. I thought I was protecting her by keeping it secret, by keeping all of you out of it. But I was wrong. I've been wrong about everything." I stared at him, my chest aching. This was my brother, the boy who once held my hand under the table when Dad yelled, who promised to protect me no matter what. And now he was the very reason I felt unsafe in my own home. "Do you even realize what you did to me?" I whispered. "You were my hero, Ethan. You were the one person I trusted more than anyone. And now I don't even know who you are." He flinched like I'd slapped him. His voice cracked. "I'm still your brother." "No," I said, shaking my head, tears streaming down my face. "My brother wouldn't lie to me. My brother wouldn't put me in danger. You broke your promise, Ethan. You broke everything." The room fell silent, the weight of my words pressing down on all of us. Mom cried harder. Dad's fist clenched. Ethan looked like he was about to crumble into dust. Finally, Dad spoke. His voice was quieter now, but no less fierce. "You have to fix this, Ethan. You brought this into our family. You're the one who's going to end it." Ethan nodded slowly, tears running down his cheeks. "I will. I don't know how yet, but I'll find a way." He stood, turning to me. His voice was barely a whisper. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that everything I did, even the lies, was because I wanted to protect you. I just didn't realize I was the one hurting you the most." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to run into his arms and pretend we could go back to the way things used to be. But the truth was sitting between us, heavy and unmovable, and nothing could erase it. When Ethan left that night, the house felt emptier than it ever had before. Mom wept on the couch. Dad stared at the dent in the wall from his fist. And me? I sat in my room with the journal, tracing his handwriting with my fingers, wondering how love and betrayal could exist so painfully side by side. The threats didn't stop after that. For weeks, we lived in fear, waiting for the knock on the door that might end everything. Ethan called sometimes, promising he was working on it, that he'd make it right. But I could hear the doubt in his voice. Eventually, he stopped calling altogether. I don't know where he is now. Some nights, I imagine he's far away, finally free. Other nights, I fear the worst, that the people he owed finally caught up with him. All I know is this. The brother I thought would always protect me is gone. In his place is a boy who tried to carry the weight of the world alone, who thought lies were the same as love, and who left me with scars I'll carry forever. But I also know this. Family is never as simple as promises whispered in the dark. Family is messy, fragile, and sometimes it breaks in ways that can never fully be repaired. I used to believe my brother was my shield. Now I know he was human, flawed, broken, and desperate. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most dangerous truth of all. Because love doesn't always save you. Sometimes, it's the very thing that tears you apart